you. Hey everyone, welcome to Maude's. Hi everyone. Oh, it's a bit close. Hi everyone, welcome to Maude's. No. It's just too close. That's just too much of my face. Hi everyone, welcome to Maude's Book Club. We're trying to do a cozy conversation here, and my cam's not. But it says it's on. It says it's on. Is this a Zoom call? What is Adam? Can someone say Adam's name 3 times?
You're showing on Twitch.
Is it? It's not showing on me.
Oh, you.
Adam Vision sends his regards.
Not anymore.
Okay, well, it says it's on the one it's supposed to be, but the other. No, it's not. This one. Yeah, it's not working. Come on. That's all right. Anyway, we'll do rough other camera where it looks like I have been in a celestial void for 4,000 years. That's all right.
We can see you right now.
But I've had to. Kate's here. Kate, it's almost like you knew my mum was going to be on this stream, so you decided to show up. Mum, you remember
I showed
Kate?
up for all those other ones that she wasn't on.
That's true. Mum, you remember Kate?
I do. I'm just looking at a sea of faces here, and I'm looking at Maude, and I don't see you moving at all. You're just a picture at the moment.
Well, yeah, have you not heard me flailing, fighting
Yes,
for
I
my
have. I've heard
freaking
you
life over
flailing.
here because my camera decided to not work, even though I checked beforehand and we were all groovy. And then as soon as I made the show live, it was a frozen image, which I could do nothing about. And as I tried my darndest to reboot it all, it wouldn't work. So that's where we're at right now. Totally fine. Loving this for me. Welcome to Maude's Book Club, everyone. We are doing House. No, we're not. We're doing the House in the Cerulean Sea sequel. It is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. This is part 2, so we're talking about all the book. We're talking about all the discussions for this. Last week we had a really amazing discussion talking about the themes of this particular book. We were talking about. Actually, House in the Cerulean Sea was more about nature versus nurture. This time we were talking more about practical versus theory and realistic representations of parenting. Mum, being in the chat, can speak firsthand as a mother, was raising 3 children because Arthur and Linus have 6, don't they? They've got 6 of them. So that's double what you had. Was 3 children effortless and calm and cozy for you?
Are you mad?
How many times?
I didn't have magical creatures. I did have magical creatures, but I had magical creatures with superpowers. The Antichrist has got nothing on the kids that I raised.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Okay, Colleen and my mum are just like, the sisterhood is strong happening over here. That's fun. Look, I don't think I was that bad. I do want to throw my brother onto the bus, under the traffic. That was tough. Come on, I was great. Can't see me, but I'm like looking at you with.
You were all wonderful, Maude.
All right, there it is. There's a couple of things I want to chat about, little housekeeping before. Oh my God, Kate, I love that. Kate said, oh my God, what a great drag name for Lucy, the Antichrist. That is so good. Kate, get out there and run with that. Own it. That's so wonderful. Cheyenne, thank you for resubscribing using Prime for 9 months. Bro, look at that. Thank you so much for the subs. We've got one for DJ, Panovibe, Mondrake, Penguin Explosive, Fibonacci, and Dixon Fire. You all got gifted a sub. Look, if you're watching it all, make sure you say thanks for that because we're a great community here. Compassion and kindness. We're ruling the world, and a healthy dose of cynicism. Thank you so much for that, Ro. And you're in here, so I get to say thank you directly. KP Dub says, "Oh, are we doing subs? Oh dear. I'm not. I am not enabling. My hands are up. I yield." Miss Necromancer says, "I'm great at drag names. My personal drag name, king name, drag king, name would go. Oh my God, I can't read at the moment. Would either be Harry Situation. I didn't even make it through. Harry Situation. Or Alfonso Mango. I still think that there's an Australian drag queen called Maude Boat, which I still think is one of the best ones. Now, it means absolutely diddly dick in an American accent, but in an Australian accent, Maud, aka Maude, is when you tie up your boat. So a Maud Boat. I thought it was really good. But also, Mum, yet another reason why the name Maud is shit. Gosh, there's a long list. The long list we got on that one.
Maude is actually a great name. What are you talking
I
about?
don't like Maud. And I think
It's the same way I felt when I was younger, though. I didn't like the name Kate.
How do you feel about it now?
No, I like it. It's like you're a little younger than me, but it's because Maude is an adult's name. It's not a kid's name. The same as like Kate is an adult's name. It's not a child's name.
Katie, I guess, yeah.
No, Katie. I got called Katie when I was a kid, but Kate, which is on my birth certificate, it's not Catherine or anything.
Hey,
That's an adult's name. It's not.
So I guess it's like if there were no other Kates in your school, we had like 7 Emilys, 5 Kates.
No, I was the only Kate always.
Maddie changed their name. I had the deed poll papers. Did I tell this story? I was going to change my name at 18. It was going to happen. I got the pages. I saved the money. I was legally going to change it. And it kind of broke Mum's heart. You were like, I love the name.
To what, Harry Situation?
I think Harry Situation is so... See, that again, it works in your accent. It's Harry Situation for me. I think Harry I'm Late would be better in my accent. Harry Up I'm Late. Darren, you changed your middle name. Rick's Bricks, I do remember. I got you, Rick. I was going to change my name to Emmy, Emmie. First name's Maude, second name's Elizabeth, M.E. So I would be Emmy Garrett. And it just so happens, and I do believe this is fate, and I wonder if she's ever watched or ever heard this story. If you... Oh, my mic's low. It's here. My camera's this way and my microphone's that way. How do I say this? I was at a job and a girl started with the name that I wanted to change my name to, Emmy. So it's like, hi, my name's Emmy. She had the worst case of stank face I've ever seen. Now, stank face, for those that don't know it, looks like a person who's constantly smelling a fart. And I immediately associated that with, I should not change my name to Emmy. If the only Emmy I've ever been introduced to was the week I was going to change my name, and she had stank face, ain't going to happen. Emmy, if you're watching, you can't help it, it's your face. KP Dub's dropping some subs to save me from this story. I appreciate that. Gifting subs to Railston, Beltran, Amenabar, Jason M. Ball, Matt Pierce, and Leaked Prism. If you got a gifted sub, thanks to KB Dubs, make sure you say a big thank you because we're nice around here. Jade Buntrock, what are you doing? Look, I get to see, because these guys are members plus, and so I get to make direct eye contact with them when they go. Thank you so much, James. You've gifted subs to Ozzy, Cam Dango. See, that's a good name too. Yossi Yee, DSB, Brush Kid, hey, do your husband got one? Good Night Moon, Caps Fan, Maddie, you got one. And Subtle Tomato, you all got gifted a sub. Thanks to J Buntrock. If you're in here and you got one, make sure you say thank you because we're nice around here. All right, on that note, didn't change my name. If I knew I was moving to America for as long as I've been here, I absolutely would have changed it. I love you, Mum. Maud's a middle name. I can't stress that enough. Maude is a middle name.
Maude, we've had so much conversation about your name, we couldn't possibly have anything different.
I believe the term you're looking for, Mum, is that you've run out of fucks. She's muting. That's what we say. When you run out, you've just run out of them. You've got no more fucks to give. 901. Hold on. Have we got an Emily in the chat? Do we have an Emily in the chat just before I read this comment? Kate says, Maud's unique name. What do you want to be? Just another basic bitch Emily. This is not to diss Emily's, it is a common name. Emily is my cousin's name. But everyone knows an Emily, right? Anyway, let's get back to the book. I had some housekeeping to do. Seb's not in the chat, but he'll watch it later. Seb, went into the P.O. box and he's made cases for my phone using the Maud's Book Club logos. I've got the actual logo here. They're still in the cases. And I got all our little ones put on there. And I can't wait to put them on my phone. And that is so cute. And I love them so much. El Jour says, I am crying. Lol. Rick says, I know 2 amazing Emilys. Yeah, because they have to try extra hard to have a personality with a name like Emily. But when you've got Maude, it's like you barely have to do a damn thing. So I tripled down and got extra personality. Now we've got new merch ideas with phone cases, says Aaron. I know, I really like that idea. We used to have it before. I will look into it. The other thing that I'd like to chat about, and I hope the microphone's louder now. Now, I've always said I love Tor Books. Oh, it's not a Tor order with Tor. In fact, I think they're quite adorable. Yeah, we're going to be clipping that. They sent me books. And not just any books they sent me. They sent me the Way of Kings books. Before the 5th book comes out, I believe, December 6th. It's from.
How much did that box weigh with
so
all 4
heavy.
of them in there?
It's so heavy. I'm the Way of Kings. I'm physically shaking holding these up at the moment, so I'll lift out one at a time. We've got the next book we're covering for Maud's Book Club, Words of Radiance. Hey Tim, look how thick that one is. It's just a cheeky. Oh my god, 1,096 pages.
Yeah,
boy.
that box is good for Arm Day, and that's about it.
Wait, don't. Next book, see that big. Anyone want to guess? We got paid guess numbers. Oh, there's pictures though. I don't want to show them just in case they're spoilers, but they're pretty. Any guesses on how many pages this one is? Because if you guess
Too many.
1,255, you'd be correct. Oh, I did Arm Day today, and that ain't easy. This is the one we've already covered for Maud's Book Club. I do have a physical copy of this already, so I might do a giveaway for this one. It will cost me $400 to send it in the post. And book number 4, Rhythm of War. Guys, I really want to continue reading the series. I really do. Thanks, Tor. I love you.
He gets a lot into mental health as we go on.
In the series?
I think he makes some really, yeah.
You've been reading
in the
ahead,
series,
Colleen.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of Rhythm of War, but I've been in the middle of Rhythm of War for about 2 months now.
Oh, so you had you just powered through books 2 and 3 then, because we did those in June and July, and it's November, and that's like 4 million words. That's pretty good. So you think we should continue with the series, Colleen?
I think it'll kill Tim if we do, but
He's got his affairs in order.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, have you got?
Well, kill me.
I don't-
I'll just skip the books like I did for Akatar and.
Oh no! See now we can't. He can have a difference of opinions in book. Kate, that's not what we say here in the club. We all fam. So now everyone has to say one nice thing about Tim. That's how that goes. I'll start.
He knows lots about sports.
There you go. Great start. Tim?
He'll win at sports trivia.
Tim shows up. And I will say, as a trait, like, he doesn't even read the book and he still shows up. And I think that that's a great quality. Jimmy says, Tim's handsome.
Debatable, but okay.
Eyebrows are waggling over here. Maddie, Tim seems nice.
Seems.
That's safe. Tim has good taste in music. There you go. I like this too. Tim has an indifference of opinion. +1 on the good music. Catch is good at judging a book quickly. Tim wears hats. I love it.
Can't argue with that.
Tim is hotter than Benny Blanco and deserves to be on the people list more.
Who is okay?
Selena
maybe I'm
Gomez's
aging myself.
boyfriend.
I don't know who that is.
Neither does
I know
Mum.
who Selena Gomez is, but I don't know who Benny Blanco is.
No, neither does Mum. You know what Mum does know? This book. So now that we've gotten through that. Oh, also we've been deciding, and thank you so much to the members who have not really supportive but will tolerate my sporadic nature. We were going to read Lightbringer in December. There's several reasons why we're going to push that one back to January, and trust me, they're all very valid. Starting with, I don't want to. But the other ones being having access to Pierce when we actually have them available through a Q&A, making schedules align in that way. And, it's a big book. So we had a little powwow, and we're going to continue on the Murderbot series because they are a little smaller, and we have been reading them with the book club, and they are just still cozy but clever. And I think cozy and clever is exactly what we're needing to finish out this year. J Bun Rock says, good, because I'm only halfway through Dark Age. And Sharon says, honestly, I'm struggling. Maddie says, good, I'm bringing a friend for Lightbringer. Fantastic. If you haven't read Murderbot, the really good news is that the first 4 books are all novellas. If you listen to them, they're like 2.5 hours. If you're reading them, it's like, how long? Reading these books? A couple of hours. They're short. So the catching up is quite easy on that one. The book 5, I believe, was the last one that we did at the beginning of the year, and it was a little bit longer. And then book 6, I believe, is smaller again. So Avery
It
says,
is entirely possible that all 7 combined are less than the 1255 of that Sanderson book.
when you put it like
To be
that.
close.
When you put it like that. It just says, yay, Murderbot. I'm already caught up on this series. Love that. Cheyenne's got a slight slump right now, to be honest. Oh, we're going to get you out of that one. Oh, I've been there. I know it. You're just like, and you try a new book, and they may as well, like, especially if I listen to it, it feels like they're going, wah, 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 wah. And I'm like, no, next. And it's all a lot of that. They just don't click. But I think Murderbot could be a good one. Cheyenne, have you read the Murderbot books, the novellas? Oh.
No, I know nothing about them.
They're quite well received around here. So Murderbot obviously is a sentient sort of human-looking, quite human passing almost, security bot. Oh, what's the term again? Avery, I know you got me. Help me out here.
Frito got it in chat. It's sec unit.
A sec unit, security unit. So is very by the book. It has a protocol in action. And it's a really sort of lovely dissection of someone on the spectrum, how someone thinks and feels or doesn't feel or chooses to feel or disassociates or is literal. All these beautiful and wonderful things about being on the spectrum. A lot of the times Murderbot really encompasses that, hyperfixating on particular topics that almost consume their personality. And that's comfortable. That's comfort for them, bonding over that particular topic. They're so wonderful. It's so well done. And it's wild that the most relatable character we've ever read is not actually human. And I think that there's so much beauty in that as well. So it is science fiction, but it's the interactions and dialogue, the story, the plot, it's all really quite wonderful. And we've been thoroughly enjoying them. So that's a great series. Avery says, I binge read the whole Murderbot series at the beginning of the year. 10 out of 10 would recommend. How long did it take you to binge read the whole series?
2 weeks because I was also working a lot, but yeah.
2 weeks to catch up on that one. So
yeah.
you've got a little bit of time. If you're reading Last Unicorn as well, there's a lot on everyone's plate. But hey, if you, like Murderbot, also don't want to talk to people, this is a really great way to catch up. Utilize that spare time. People out, books in. Love it. Good. What is that quote? When did I say that? The quote is, "You see a naked gnome butt holding on with all desperateness." Hector said that. Oh, good. No, it says the moderator did. Oh, no, Hector said, "I don't want to see a sad big booty." Oh, they were good times. Kate says, "I won't be reading since this time of year my brain is tapped out because of holidays, so I can't promise anything since I've got zero brainwave left for anything." I feel like Murderbot, if there were limited capacity, like Lightbringer, that's what I mean. Like, way too much thinking for that. It's so clever, and I want to give it the attention and capacity it deserves. But if you are like 80% on the out with like wanting to do anything, again, Murderbot's really, really good for those. There's going to be 3 weeks between the last unicorn and the Murderbot dates. Love that. Hold on, we haven't even locked in the Murderbot dates, have we? 12th and 19th. Yes, we have. All right, so that's the housekeeping that we're doing. Let's chat about this book because it is part 2. We've read the whole thing. I want to go around in the chat, in the Discord video channel as well. I want to hear out of 5 what you give this book. And Mum, I'm going to start with you. What'd you give this book out of 5?
I'm going to give it 4 out of.
What'd you do to the microphone? What happened?
I just turned it on.
Okay, we can hear you. 4 out of 5. Why? Why
Yep.
4?
Why 4?
Yep.
Plus, I really liked it. I think it's a great story, and I keep saying I really like the House in the Cerulean Sea, and this one perhaps to be like a year 9 or 10 school text, because I think it's got some really, really important things that it's saying in the allegory. But look, there was a couple of little hiccups that I had with it. One, and I've just reread it, which is when Arthur implodes and self-immolates, if you like, and goes, sort of is reborn. And he sort of goes through that catharsis. And I think I kept thinking as I was reading it before that he needed to do something, and he did something. He's got a huge amount of baggage from his childhood. He's been alone and isolated, and, he's been unique, and that's almost been a punishment because there's been nobody else but him. So I sort of felt, his baggage has sort of been turned into protectiveness and I won't say possessiveness, but protectiveness. And he's been able to do that until he couldn't when he gets really angry with Mabel Moore. So I sort of felt that there should be it would be more interesting to have a little bit more of his baggage, but that might be just me, but to have a little bit more of his baggage coming through. I mean, he's been tortured and tormented, and this isn't going to go away for him. And I think that would have been a little bit more interesting, but then it probably would take a little bit away from the YA. What do you guys think?
And she passes it on. It's beautiful. Well done, Mum. People are still writing in the comments what they are giving it out of 5. But Kate, you're the one I see first. I know you just did a whole blurb there, but I'm going to ask you to chat about it.
I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was going to be higher after the first half, but I just found the second half of the book was very, like, I say it in my comment, it's like kind of cringe because it was so heavy-handed. It was very like black and white. It didn't have the feeling of like softness and warmth, like, like a cuddly cardigan, like the first book had and the first half of the book, where it's just like, full of love. And then it just like turned into just like cookie cutters of people. And it was kind of disappointing because the first book and the first half of the book really, like, these kids and Arthur and Linus felt like people, it brushed past a lot of the terrible things that these kids would have had to go through, and like the things that are, but the second half just felt almost like, I don't want to be too insulting, but it just felt almost AI, like, when they pumped all of the Batman stories into an AI, they got it to write a Batman story. And it's like, yeah, that's a Batman story, but it was very almost like, what's that word?
Sure.
Clinical?
You know when you're doing like a screenplay and you have the pictures of what each shot is going to look like?
Yeah, storyboard?
Storyboard, that's the
Animatic?
word. Sorry. It was almost like storyboard, like drawings of an idea, and it didn't have that same emotional depth that the other parts of these two books had, at least for me.
I said something quite
And
similar.
it felt like it was super wishful thinking, and it's like that would be nice, like, and of course, like, I get what he was trying to do, and it's like it is an important message, but I don't know, it was just
my whole
not well executed, in my opinion.
My whole issue that I had last time was, and this was last week, and I was just like, look, I will say when I was reading it before November 6th, it was kind of grating on me. After November 6th, I let it wash all over me. And I did actually notice a big difference in, like, you know what? I'm just happy that this even exists and that someone's able to think like this and that it's been published, and I'm such an advocate of hope and kindness and compassion. So let's go. But I also did say, and I had this chat with Mum, was it yesterday, Mum? Where I was like, children are spontaneous, children are deviants, children are like, children will just do the thing. And what I think is really interesting is that the number one thing a child learns on their own, it is not taught. It is a human development thing that they come to terms with. Kids learn how to lie. They learn to be deceptive. I remember, Mum, one of my first times I got caught out lying, and I thought you were superhuman. I was like, Mum knows everything. Do you remember what it was? You stormed out with this apple that was in the fridge that had one bite out of it. And you lined the three of us up and you said, who took a bite out of this apple? And all of us were like, absolutely not me. You were like, Jack, was it you? And he's like, nope. Darcy, was it you? Nope. Maude, did you do this? Nope. I'm going to ask you, Maude, one more time. Was this you? And I was like, I said no. And she's like, well, I know it was you. And I remember being like, how? I said it wasn't. How did you know? Little Maude had a giant gap in her front teeth. And that gap was so clearly engraved into this one bite of the apple. And Mum's like, why did you lie? And I was like, how did you know? But it's like one of those things where we are taught human nature to lie. We also do things behind our parents' backs. We will experiment. We will build mud pies. We will cause a mess. We will, all these things that are just kid things. And a lot of the time we need to learn because we did the thing that wasn't cool. We pushed someone off a bike to figure out gravity. Oh, but it scraped their leg, and you're like, oh, that looked like it hurt. Got it. I actually haven't really liked apples since. They've goddamn betrayed me. The apple was the issue. The core issue. Oh! KB Dubs, where were you? Where's my mum? Don't shake your head, Jeff. That was good. The core is okay. KB Dubs, come on. That was good though, yeah. Yeah. I just didn't think the kids were even allowed to be kids. And the conversation we had last week in detail was this was very heavy-handed with theory, not practice. So it's like, I think I'd like to do this. And it's like, all right, well, let's talk about that. What do you think would happen? I think this could happen. Well, maybe it's that. Okay, maybe I don't want to do it anymore. And I just don't think kids have the capacity to talk through things in that way. I love that it's presented in this book. And the big thing that we discussed last week was sometimes it just needs to be cozy and it needs to be safe and it needs to be effortless and it needs to be fine. We don't need conflict all the time. I just think that it impacted the realistic human nature of children and became a lot more heavy-handed in the messaging as a consequence. I came up with 2 examples of how Lucy could have used his powers in a way that he didn't realize was bad, but saw a direct consequence of how he hurt someone. One of them was he and Theodore went out into the forest and lit a tree on fire because they want things to burn. Holy shit, Mum, do you remember when I nearly lit the house on fire 3 times? I burnt the mattress. I burnt your downstairs furniture. I just loved fire. Fire is cool. if I had a friend who was a wyvern and could breathe fire, you betcha. Like there is flame. There is lots of flame. Exactly. Which kid hasn't nearly burnt their house down? 100%. This Theodore can make fire. What a great lesson if Fee comes out screaming, saying, "Why are you hurting the trees? What did they do to you?" And that was the lesson. That was the consequence. Another one could be, Papa, can I have another cookie? No. And then gets up and gives him a cookie. And it's like Lucy just used the mind control for a little bit. And Linus kind of registering, going, hey, that really wasn't cool. I'm not aware of my actions for the last 45 seconds. Like, you can't use me as a pawn to get, like, I just wanted more practical. I just wanted more opportunities for these kids to be kids and the lessons to try where they can actually make the mistake and feel the direct impact of their actions. Yes, Mido. Aaron, your hand's been up.
Just wanted to add an anecdote to the whole, you saying you pretty much set everything on fire in the house.
Apparently, Jeff said he's never done that as a kid. You were very good, but like matches.
Me, no, but kind of like how I said last week, I kind of learned from my older brother's mistakes.
Yes.
He and a buddy of his, they're maybe 12, 13. They're playing with matches and setting pine cones on fire outside in our backyard.
Chauncey.
My mom also happened to be out there at the time, and she was watering flowers. So immediately clocks this and just takes the hose right at them. No, not even thinking about it, just immediately just spraying them both down with the hose.
Yeah.
Just to put out the fire and also punish them both for trying to set her house on fire.
But you know who's the equivalent of mum with a hose? Arthur Parnassus and fire. He could just be like, and so he minimizes all the damage, and that was the safe place to make that mistake. The worst thing that happened was Mum brought this up. There were throwaway comments. There was a throwaway comment about this thing that happened, and you're like, no, that's a big deal. Like, what were they, Mum? There was something that Lucy had done, and it was like, remember the time I did this? And you're like, what? That's huge. But it was just do you remember it?
I can't remember.
Cool.
I can't remember. All I remember is thinking yesterday. I remember you saying that yesterday, and I thought, no, I actually was saying that Arthur has these very dangerous kids in a way, that he doesn't want to live their life or let them live their lives as dangerous kids, but he also respects that they're going to want to do stuff and be stuff and develop into, perhaps develop their powers or their gifts or however you want to put it. So I think he's just incredibly cautious. I think he's very controlled the whole way through the book. He's very cautious in sort of praising them, but he's also really manipulating them to minimize kind of the damage that they could inflict. Does that make sense?
Manipulating them is another word for that just parenting? Jeff, you've got thoughts. Yes. I want to hear that. I want to hear you were like, yeah, no, a little.
I guess, so to say something about myself, I at a very young age, I was a parent of I guess what would have been a stepchild. We were engaged but never got married. He was 3 when we started dating, 8 when it ended. I think there's a difference between manipulation and parenting. Manipulation can, at least in my mind, has a connotation of being negative or controlling, and parenting is, in my mind, also a little more redirecting instead of controlling, maybe.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There is nuance. It's again, and this is what we talked about last week, the biggest difference between, I think, what could be manipulation and redirection is patience. Have you got the patience to take the time? And I think Arthur really does deliver a first-hand lesson, and Linus, of what patience looks like and how that level of patience can really be so important. Mum, how was your patience as a mum?
Variable. Very variable.
You've got good reflexes, is all I'm going to say. Yeah, that's a thing. And I remember I'm even triggered by mom, 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 mom. I can't hear that. I just want to like, no. Do you say it once? You say it once and then that's it. Just say it once and then wait. Say it once and I say 1 second and then you wait. But like the mom, I there's something about that where my patience would just disappear. It would be gone so fast. But it's like, yes, Colleen. She's like,
Um, my granddaughter is teaching her kids how to cook because she said she had so many great memories working with me in the kitchen, and she said she just was amazed at how much patience I had with them. I told her it was because by then I was on medication. with my boys, not so much.
there you go. Whatever it takes, however you can get through the best. In fact, Ali said something quite similar here. This is something we talk a lot in medicine because we don't want to infantilize our patients and remove their autonomy. But we also feel obligated to do no harm and help them make healthy decisions. So that's a really interesting kind of aspect to look at it when you're talking to patients. Speaking of a different kind of patients. Colleen says kids learn manipulation early. Mum, don't talk about that. Don't answer. Ali also says the author said that he wanted to be the anti-J.K. Rowling. I get what he means, but it made me think that he was trying to go for the early Harry Potter thing where the kids are impossibly brave or brilliant or kind and just peak humanity. This is like a really delicate line between this new sort of generation of the Gen Zs where their parents or even millennials, their parents told them they could be and do anything. And that was a real reality check hitting the workforce because there has been a vast or gross misunderstanding of what hard work is. The millennial workforce, I'm speaking for my generation, has still bled into the baby boomers ethos of you work hard. You get up, you do the job, you shut up, you say yes, and you do it. And I think that is to a little bit of a detriment now that it has gone so far the other way where we're emailing at 3 a.m. We are making sure that we're showing up. And our pay is staying the same. In fact, the inflation of the minimum wage, I believe, has increased something like 13.7% since the late 1970s. And housing inflation has gone up something like 1,600%. So that math ain't mathin' for the millennial. And yet we still shut up and do the job that we're not even getting paid well to do. What's happening with Gen Z being raised by the Gen X is micromanaging, helicopter parenting, making sure they're not scraping their knees, making sure they're not eating the bugs out of the yard, which did that, don't recommend it. But it's not getting their hands dirty, and it's also not showing that you have to work hard or even smart. I learned to work smart, and Mum thought that that was also a version of manipulation, but I still got a B as a grade overall in high school, Mum. And look at me now. My whole thing is I learned that if I complimented all of my teachers, my grade would go up by at least 1, and it did. So I just saved myself like 7,000 hours studying because I just said, hey, Mrs. Crouch, you've got a really lovely haircut. Noticed haircuts. Superpower. Gave me a grade higher. What I'm trying to say is Gen Zs are entering the workplace saying, no, I will not accept this 8:30 a.m. meeting because my work hour starts at 9 a.m. Now, I am grasping my pearls over here, thinking that that is absolutely unacceptable. If you need to be at a meeting at 8:30, you shut up and do it. And there's also a flip side of that saying, maybe Gen Z are establishing and setting the boundaries that we never thought we had permission to. So there is a really delicate side or a line. Now, will these kids grow up incredibly sheltered because Arthur wouldn't really let them do anything where they could use their powers, do the thing, experiment, learn, make the mistake? We don't really know that. Kate, I kind of want to pass it on to you. What do you realistically... Oh, yeah? Oh, Mum's got thoughts.
I think we do. I think Sal is the pin-up boy for maturity and growing and growth, and he really comes into his own. He starts challenging the sort of the system, and I really like seeing the development of Sal over time. from the first book to the second book, and everything that he's saying is really an amalgam of all the things that he's learnt from Arthur. And it's autonomy and it's independence and all those things that basically Arthur's been sort of doing with these kids that has brought Sal to that place.
Yeah, but what's the number one thing that Sal has been saying over and over and over again? Let us in. Let us do the thing.
But he wants to be let in, but he also wants to, he wants to show himself.
He's saying,
how
stop
he's
protecting
thinking.
me so much. You can't keep protecting us forever.
But he's also starting to worry about Arthur and starting to be an adult and saying, you do a lot for us. And you really shouldn't be, you shouldn't be taking on all this. We want to be part of this. We're old enough and getting, wise enough to be able to, participate in this a little bit more. I thought Sal was a really interesting character.
I loved Sal's evolution in this book. I thought it was incredibly powerful. And I noticed that him being 15 years old, he was a reluctant leader until he recognized that he wanted to lead. He was such an introvert. He got passed around from all these orphanages. He got so scared. He bit someone and passed on, like in a werewolf sort of magical mantra, where it's like he bit someone and gave them the ability to shift as well. But he spent the first book observing. And I think those observations are paying off. And I said this last week, Mum, but he's 15. Lucy's 7. There is quite an age gap between them, and he's recognizing that he is the oldest and he's becoming sort of like the wisest and wants to step up in a leadership role. I love that he wants to learn about how to run the orphanage. I thought that was so beautiful because he wants to follow in Arthur's footsteps. Aaron says Sal probably had the biggest character progression from the first book, given how shy he was in that first book. I think that I agree with what Kate was saying earlier. There was just a lack of depth. There were so many ways we could explore the depth of these characters. There were so many ways we could really put them in scenarios and let them fly, even though Fee did get to spread her wings. There could have been more to it. I think Sal's development was the best. I wish I saw that more with some of the others as well. We didn't quite get that deep with them, which is why I think Sal shines the most here.
And I agree with Kate. Exactly what she said. When she said it, I thought that yes, that's what I was feeling. It felt twee a little bit at the ending. It just felt
That's a
little
great
bit.
word for it.
What's the word, Mum?
Twee? It wasn't great.
No, don't unmute. What's
twee?
Spell it.
Twee, Twee.
What's it mean, Mum?
It means like saccharine, sugary.
I said saccharine last time. Twee. Word of the day. Twee. Kate earlier commented, I hate whining, even just the pitch of the voice. When kids are in the store whining, I want to kick them through an industrial store. Oh, shit.
It's true. It's just the most annoying pitch of sound in, like, just urge to kill rising.
The what are they called? Invasive thoughts? What are they called?
Intrusive thoughts.
Intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, most people think that it's like, oh, I'm gonna dye my hair, or such an intrusive thought. It's like that.
It's yeeting children into industrial fans.
That's impulsive.
Yeah,
that's being impulsive.
Lindsay earlier talking about parenting said parenting is all about redirecting, and sometimes you just have to let them make the mistakes. As much as it sucks to watch, you have to let them experience it. They will learn more from the mistakes that they made than what I ever could do. I agree with that. I feel like we learn, but I mean, not everyone's the same. I'm speaking for myself. I learn doing far more quickly than reading or hearing or, being lectured or explained. And Mum, I remember you would do a job. You're like, hey, sit down. We need to talk about this. And I'd be like, I want to be anywhere but in this conversation. Because I get it, I know, but there's just like this almost shame of like having to sit there and discuss it. I just wanted to be anywhere else. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. Even though you did a very good job, Mum, and I would listen to it. I love you. Other people are weighing in on this as well. Aaron, you brought this up last week. Arthur is an anti-Professor X like that, sheltering instead of helping them be prepared for the world outside their island home. Jimmy says Sal is always asking questions, and I love that curiosity. Avery says, I think that's big on difference between the book between Linus and Arthur's POV. Linus was the one who convinced Arthur to relax and let the kids experience the world. I do like that. Linus is kind of like, well, Linus also doesn't have his childhood trauma. Linus has experienced something very, very different. And I love that Arthur is finally acknowledging that he's ignored his trauma and never even like allowed himself to cry for him. There's a great quote in, I think, chapter 11. And for the first time, Arthur Franklin Parnassus wept for himself. Ugh, I love that. And we have to understand, like, overprotective is a response from childhood trauma some of the times. Mom, am I right? Shit. Now I have like...
What's that?
I said I put it as a statement, and now I realize I need to corroborate my story because I'm coming at it with this.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you had a pretty catastrophic trauma in your childhood, that one of the coping mechanisms could be to go far the other way and be incredibly overprotective?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess a lot of self-doubt. I don't get a lot of feeling through the book of Arthur's self-doubt until that time that he goes up and he's so angry that he's realised, you know, Marble Moore and Rowder are going to, you know, steal Lucy. You know, and that implosion and everything I thought was very good. What was your question?
Oh, no, you already said I was right. It's good. We're fine.
Okay.
No. I was talking about how if you have quite a horrible or traumatic childhood, that one of the things that you'll do is overcorrect and try to protect immensely. And that's sort of what we're seeing Arthur do. And then you chatted, and I
Yes,
swear
well,
I was
that's
listening.
true. That's true. But I think there's a lot of other things that Arthur would be going through as well as that. I mean, I think TJ Klune has really focused on his protectiveness.
Yeah.
That he's trying to save everybody because nobody saved him.
Nice.
And I think that makes perfect sense. But there's other layers of Arthur that we don't really get to see.
That's right. You were saying that there was, like, for the first time you kind of saw him not be so self-confident, or, you know, you saw a sort of like flaws in his personality where he was second guessing and he was scared and he wasn't able to kind of keep his, like, he started unraveling. He started spiraling. And he didn't really know what to do about that. I would have thought the first thing, if I overheard that conversation, record there's no phones here, fine. The second thing I would do is I would tell someone immediately while I could quote verbatim what I saw. And I feel like Arthur just internalized it immediately. Didn't share it with Linus, didn't share it with anyone, and just started unraveling. And it's like, I felt that.
Well, he sees himself as the protector. He sees himself as the person that has to make this okay, you know, to save them. And he can't, and he realises how difficult it's going to be to save them. And that's kind of what triggers his implosion, I guess.
Yeah.
His trauma gives him a savior complex. He needs to be a savior.
Yeah. Well, especially not putting himself first ever as well. Oh, sorry, I'm going to do a little... he puts everyone else before him. It's almost like he's not capable of looking after himself. He won't let it. And now whether that is he doesn't feel like he deserves it, or if that is like he just is so wanting to prioritize everyone but himself, and by distracting himself by looking after everyone else, he never has to acknowledge it, because it definitely sounds like if this is the first time that he's breaking down, he did not let himself think about that. And he has busied himself the moment he was able to leave the island with trying to help everyone, anyone else. Dude needed therapy is what we're learning here. Hey, Mum, why should people go to therapy?
Why should people go to therapy, or Arthur should go to therapy?
Both?
Well, I mean, there's even Zoe on the island. I mean, he's been on the island a long time with Zoe, and I think Zoe's been very helpful in the friendship department and their common sort of goal. But, you know, I think, he's protected himself to such an extent that he really, he's not asking for help for him. And that's therapy. Therapy's asking help for yourself, to discover yourself in a way. Awesome. I don't know. That's probably pretty twee too, Kate.
Hey, stop buddying up with that. What is this, Mum? Getting Kate on your side. See what's happening. It's fine. I'm secure. I'm a secure person. There's a lot of conversation in the chat actually talking about Linus. Very much slinking into the shadows with his character in this book. Yes, Linus was the POV for the first book, but Kate, you were saying that he's almost just a cutout at this stage, interchangeable. He did not really have a role at all. I'm going to start reading these comments in the discussion. Kate said, one thing that Linus's character kind of just disappeared to me. Sal got some development, but Linus could have just been a cutout. He kind of became an accessory to Arthur in this story, and that's why I don't feel like this book should have existed. It would have been better as a novella or something to let Arthur talk about his trauma, but I don't know. Aaron jumps in saying, yeah, he was set dressing, but it was hyper-focused on Arthur, but Linus's perspective would have just been as equally important because of his past as someone who worked for Daikami. Yeah, you're right. We could have had epic insights into, well, when I was there and when I studied it, and according to this particular, oh gosh, I still can recite the codex. Oh, it's ingrained in me. And having like a little bit of a struggle and battle, because there were times where Arthur's just like kind of doing the thing that he didn't want done to him. And I'm like, you're so black and white. You are so, there's no middle ground. It was just so heavy-handed with absolutely not. And I will threaten your life if you do otherwise. And you're like, how is that helpful to this conversation at all? And I would have loved Linus really feeling torn in the middle, being like, but I worked for them and I kind of understand. But if they just changed these things, but Arthur, you kind of need to change these things. And if we're able to then get on that same page, I don't know. I think that could have been a really fascinating depth to this whole conversation.
I'm going to type it out, Maude, but I agree that Linus would have had a really interesting point of view because it's brought up a couple times. Sal with Miss Marblemaw once when he kind of throws her edicts back in her face about, so if you're saying that about my magical power, does that mean because I'm black, like I can't, have rights? And she's like, what? I would never. But then Arthur's like, you can't know what we feel ever to Linus because Linus is like the normie in the house. And he is. And like, I mean, I think Linus wants to understand. That was the whole point of the first book, was learning to understand and like accept and stuff. But that would have been an interesting perspective too. The like wanting to be part of this family and they're becoming a family, but then Arthur kind of pushing him aside because he's not magical. And so it's like, that's an interesting point of view too, that we didn't get at all because Linus,
we did. He snapped once. There was a slight bit there where Arthur just snapped. He's like, you're never going to get it.
Why didn't you save them? I really liked the part where they were having this argument. This is before Arthur implodes, and he's yelling at Linus saying, why didn't you save them? And I think that is a really important question in the book. I think that's the question in the book.
Yeah.
You had years and all you did was add to this issue. I love that. You're so right. And sorry, I know that there's lots of hands up and I absolutely will get to you. Cheyenne brings up an amazing point though. I'm going to read your comment if that's okay, Cheyenne. I think the idea that someone mentioned earlier was that the story was supposed to be about the magical community. Linus is not important here. Linus said his piece already. Let the marginalized people speak. I think that that's TJ's intention here. At least that's how I understood how he writes, how I understood it and how he writes. The one time that Linus tries to speak up, Arthur shuts him down. And I think it was more like that. But I also think it's so important. If Linus is like, well, I don't understand, but I need you to help me understand what this is like. And that's another conversation is, do I have the bandwidth to teach you? Well, yeah, I love you and you're so important and you're willing to learn. Other people, do you have the bandwidth to teach? No. They don't want to know. Why would you spend that time trying to convince someone who's just heavily rooted and wants to take the Antichrist and weaponize them to rule the government? Like, woohoo. So thank you for Cheyenne for sharing that one. And if you've got any more thoughts on it, I would love to hear them because I think that was really
Yeah, just real quick, because I know other people had their hands up. Yeah, I think it's really just the way that TJ writes and the stories that he wants to put out are, again, we've talked about it constantly, just these cozy stories. It's all, positive. And we talked about, the different generations understanding, like always wanting comfort and positivity and almost toxic positivity. And then, older generations being like, kind of being able to understand that complexity of like, no, like the queer community has struggles and this is what we've gone through. And, that's more of a reality than all these comfy, cozy, stories. But again, he's trying to be that anti J.K. Rowling. And, if in regards to, shutting down Arthur all the time, and do I have that bandwidth? It can feel really heavy as somebody from a marginalized community to have to constantly educate someone about these kinds of things.
Yeah. And I think I said last week, it's like you really have to pick and choose your battles. And if it's a person who you love that can help and almost like want to share your burden, wants to learn about why this is so difficult, why is this hard, let me understand because I feel like I could be more at service to you and for you and help you. So you're not so alone, because I think that disconnect can be really isolating as well. And it can cause more of a rift because it's like, you don't understand, so I'm pushing you away. And then I turn to my marginalized community because they understand me and that's comfort. But then that's like, how do you bridge that as well? It's really fascinating. And I'm so glad you brought that up and I'm glad we had the space for that. Aaron and Darren, you've had your hands up. I don't know if we've moved past from the conversation because we did kind of get a bit into it, but that's how this goes. And I really appreciate your patience as we get the conversation where it just happens to go.
My thing was kind of back with what Mama Garrett was talking about with like, why does people like, need therapy? And it's basically like it's asking for help. And it reminded me of this quote from the book I brought up last week, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And one of the quotes was, I even put it in the chat, "What is the bravest thing you ever said?" asked the boy. "Help," said the horse. When have you been at your strongest?" asked the boy. "When I've dared to show my weakness." "Asking for help isn't giving up," said the horse. "It's refusing to give up." I thought that's basically what Arthur isn't, is he's not asking for help.
No.
It's like he's slowly kind of giving up because he's just taking on all this burden. It's like if he just asked for help, it would make his job a lot easier. But he refuses
But I mean,
to do
I
it because
wonder if there's a masochistic kind of piece there where he doesn't want to burden others and he feels like because he's gone through it, he can carry a lot more, but he's okay with it hurting and breaking him because, I don't know.
He doesn't know how to ask for help.
He doesn't know how to ask for help.
Yeah, I put that in the, as well as like basically he's a caretaker, but he doesn't like being taken care of.
There it is. I'm trying to get my audio a bit louder and I don't know how to do that. And so I'm fucking shit. So if it gets worse, I apologize. I'm just slightly distracted while I try to make it loud. Is it working now? I think I found. Did I find it? Is it louder? I found a button. Volume mixer. Let's.
Sounds good to me.
Sounding good? Even louder?
To me, yeah.
Great. There's a lot of ding dings happening. No issues with audio. I know it's different for different people. But yes, Darian, let's go.
Yeah. No, just to tie back to what you were saying about he needs therapy and he was distracting himself. Like, one thing you see clearly from his inner monologue throughout the book is just the theme of he's just repressing everything. So he's like, just really pushing down the phoenix. Really, he's very aware when it slips and everything, and he is actively repressing his feelings, his emotions. Just to present this facade, which is supposed to be comforting and give the children reassurance, but at the same time, it's eating away at himself.
He's showing it. It's interesting because the masculine trait is that strength is enduring, right? You endure, you suppress, you stay strong, you stay, unburdened or unemotional. Like it's like you carry all of that, and that's a very masculine trait, right? That's what strength looks like. I loved how much David the Yeti cries in this book. When he is just plopping ice cubes everywhere, I thought that was so important, especially because he's a big monster. But I just wanted to almost like more reward for like just teaching young men and boys to express and that it's okay, because you bury that, and it happens for a lot of women as well. And I think that's a childhood, or it's a response of never feeling like you could share, never feeling like your emotions mattered, or not being able to kind of express yourself. And so
they still kind of do that. I have a friend who, she has a young son, he's 5, so he's in his first year of school in kindergarten. And one of the feedbacks is because she's teaching him to like experience emotions, and it's like, yeah, I know, like it's okay to be upset, like, and frustrated that didn't get the instant gratification of like getting this toy. So you're allowed to feel these emotions, but let's understand what you're feeling, kind of thing. But even notes from teachers still in this day is like, he's too emotional. And she was like, I doubt they'd say that if he was a girl.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it was a really important.
That's 2024.
I also think it was really important because I got quite angry with it. Let me pull up. Did I shut it down? That's no good. I had a quote when Harriet, Ms. Mabel Moore tells Talia to shave her beard. And it's like, are we looking into sort of like this, the standard of beauty that is set for women? The thing that irked me the most was, yes, we have a standard. We should have no body hair at all. It takes a little bit of time, but it's what we must do. Don't you want to find a husband? This is a child. I mean, yeah, sure, she's 237 years old, but the stage in her life is her being a child. And this is an adult woman already pushing on a responsibility where her entire purpose is to be a wife to a man. I got furious about that. I got so mad. Mum, something that you never did was like, have you got a boyfriend? Who's going to be your boyfriend? Do you have crushes on boys? Are you going to be married soon? You've never once brought that up. There was a time there where you're like, I'd like grandchildren one day. And then thank God my brother stepped up and just sorted that out. So you are now a grandmother. But not once have you ever pressured me or made it even a subtle requirement that like my purpose is that I need a man. So I want to thank you for doing that. And I think that that's why Adam Vision, I keep asking you and you say no, you're not desperate. Thanks, Adam. Lovely to have you here. Where were you when my camera stopped working at the start? No, I'm kidding. I adore you. Thank you so much for showing up. We have had technical difficulties at you wouldn't have it any other way. Cheyenne said, oh, I got told constantly to behave more ladylike. Knock off the crude language. Brush your hair. No one wants your knotted curls. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you must brush your hair 100 times before you go to bed. But it's so funny because like that's what Talia wants to do with her beard because she's proud of her beard. Colleen says, I've seen that so much in the culture that I live in. Kate says, haha, that's the discourse right now that boomers are complaining about no grandchildren. And yet they are the ones that ruin the world so nobody can afford food, let alone children. It's passed down. All I know is that the rich are getting richer and the poor are starving. And where the fuck is our Robin Hood when we need one? We gotta steal from the rich so we can feed the poor. Instead,
I have a comment about the expectations. I grew up in an extremely conservative home in a very conservative time.
Can I just say,
And
really quickly, you were saying that and Cheyenne's furiously nodding. And the reason why that's so funny is that, Colleen, you have bright pink and purple hair, and Cheyenne, you've got bright blue hair. And I love that you were able to finally reclaim your independence on your looks with your gorgeous bright hair. Okay, continue, sorry.
well, when I was, from the time I was young, my mom would tell me things like, well, you should go into teaching because that way, when you get married and have kids, your education isn't a waste. Because obviously that's
the only role.
I mean,
yeah. Heaven forbid you use an education for the rest of your life in any way you choose. Cheyenne, you were nodding along to that. Is that something that you can absolutely relate to?
Oh, yeah, just the, being raised in a very conservative household and just coming out the complete opposite of it, leaving that whole thing. And just definitely that. But, I think I mentioned it too, just being a military brat as well, and being, brought up so aggressively, I think is the word that I want to use. But that's why I liked this book so much, is because it showed me a side of parenting that was a lot more gentler, that I in some ways wish I could have had, although I am grateful. It's always, you want what you don't have. It made me a harder worker. It made me, pushed me towards my goals. But yeah.
I'd have a question for both you and Colleen then, because if you're raised, and anyone else you can identify or relate to, being raised in a very conservative household where you felt suppressed in a way, what was the moment for you, only if you're comfortable sharing, where you were able to kind of form your own opinion and find almost a personal liberty in being able to choose who you were and what felt good? What was that moment for you? High school, outside of high school?
Well, in high school, I was a political rebel in my household. I would upset my mom by quoting Lenin to her. I was very anti-Vietnam War. I don't think my mom always was in a state of denial about where my head was and even where I hung out a lot of times. I'd go down and hang out in the coffee shop with my friends and discuss politics. So probably starting in high school. But when I really came into my own was when I went away to college, because at that point, I was no longer held responsible for my younger siblings. Up until then, I had always been responsible for someone else.
Right. So you actually were able to choose you first and be you. That's great. What about you, Shan?
Yeah, kind of similar in that last bit too. My younger sister there's a 12-year age gap between us. So I was the built-in babysitter. I think we talked about this a few different times. But in regards to coming into my own, probably middle school, when I was, able to be around other people and other viewpoints, I started to see that, and I wasn't just stuck in my bubble. In middle school specifically, I had my best friend at the time, her older sister, who was in college, was a lesbian and had a trans partner. So I had never seen that in my life before. So being able to see these different communities, and also coming to terms with my own, sexuality as well, and being a part of the queer community and realizing that and having an open mind towards these, different viewpoints and stuff like that. Glee was a big point for me in middle school. I loved Glee. That was like my thing. And theater as well is very prominent in, the gay community. So seeing a lot of that really helped bring me into my own. But I will say, although I was raised in a conservative household, I think the big thing is that my mom is the youngest of 9. And so I think she had a bit more open-mindedness than a lot of her siblings. When I was growing up, I mean, even in high school, like I got a lot of things from like my aunts or uncles that are like, oh, those liberals with their blue hair and nose rings and like make them out to be like all this, So,
Wait, do you have the nose ring?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
But so I will say, my parents, although they believe differently than I do, they brought me up to make my own decisions and have my own beliefs, which is why I'm still in contact with my parents, unlike a lot of my family.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. But this is the big thing that I'm taking from this, is that once you leave the house is where you grow the most. But I guess that's when you are brought up in a way that you don't feel safe, or you don't feel like you can explore, or you're not kind of like you put into a box perhaps. And I don't think that that's happening in this particular household. I feel like they feel incredibly accepted. They're able to do whatever it is that they want. They feel supported. So why would they want to leave? Because it's like you're protecting from the outside world instead of finding freedom in the outside world. Little conversation about musicals after Glee being like a pinnacle or a changing point for a lot of people. Kate says my gay card's probably going to be revoked for saying this, but I don't like musicals. Neither do I. Watch Wicked. Holy shit, guys, that movie's a masterpiece. I was going to walk out because it was 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I was like, what am I doing here? Within like however long, I was so changed, and that movie is so great. And the only way it would ever be better is if I was able to watch that movie as a gay man, which is something I won't be able to do, and I'm a bit devastated about it. So, oh my God, Wicked is so good. It's so good. So maybe watch that and get back to me, Kate, if you want to. Oh, see, I haven't even seen the stage production, J-Bone. I haven't even seen that. I had nothing going into it. Lisa says, honestly, for me, I was lucky, and my oldest sister allowed me to move into their new home after I turned 18 because my mum was threatening to kick me out since I stopped going to church. Because of her and her husband's generosity, I feel like I was finally free to become who I am. Oh, wow, that's so good. And I feel like, yeah, I kind of shared the story, Mum, about religion last week. I think I showed you a clip of it where your whole attitude was, this is where your father and I stand with it. This is how our approach has been. This is what it's been like. We really encourage you to learn about all types of religions. Learn about Buddhism. Learn about like everything. Judaism. Islam. What's that one? There's like a lot of them, and I learned them all in religious studies.
Islam,
Yeah. I was like, there's so many different things.
Well, it was, I'm not going to put this on you.
Yeah.
I'm going to allow you to decide what you want to do. And I said that to Darcy when he went to America. He stayed in Florida and he was in Illinois in very religious households, which was, which was quite confronting, I suppose, for Darcy. And when he came back, I said, did you want to go to church? And he said, why are you asking this? And I said, well, because you've been in a Christian environment for the last couple of years, and, do you want to, is that a faith that you would like to pursue? And he said, no, because I think he spent an awful lot of time on his knees in church and doing church groups and stuff, and I think he'd had enough. But my thoughts were for you guys that you, as an adult or a teenager, you got to choose what faith you wanted to pursue rather than me sort of indoctrinate you into something that I thought you should believe in.
Yeah. I just remembered we had like a church group, which I didn't know was a church group because I think I'd grown out of Girl Guides, and there was one on like a Friday night, and it took me a little bit too long to know that it was like, because it was at the church and I just thought that was a venue. And then they kind of started saying, girls keep your legs closed forever. You're 12 years old now, so let's start, doing that. And of course, the whole time I was there, I was just trying to look for the cutest boy. I was like, I'm going to tongue kiss you later. And so it did not work. I didn't do that though, Mum. I was just looking. I wasn't going to do it. I was just thinking about it.
Things mums don't really need to know more.
Mum, you know a lot more than that. Who are you kidding? Hey, Jeff, really quickly, you made a comment earlier where you were called Jeffina if you weren't behaving strictly male-coded. What was that like, and how did you kind of like learn to shirk, I guess, the responsibility of being male-coded?
I mean, I guess I grew up with Republican parents. They weren't excessively religious. I was forced to get confirmed, even though, like, it turned into a massive thing. I went to like 3 different meetings with the head pastor because I was like, well, I read a lot. So I've been reading like Buddhist texts and Hindu texts and Jewish texts and Islamic texts, and they all seem to say more or less the same thing. And I proposed some ideas, and they all told me no. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light, and blah blah blah. And so I don't know. All of that kind of got bound into one thing in my head, and I. The one thing I will say about my parents, they did a lot of that sort of stuff, but they also. I didn't necessarily love my mom's cooking. Sorry to all the moms.
I can relate
But
to
my
that.
mother, instead of saying, well, you have to eat what I cook or whatever, she said, fine, figure it out. And so I went and learned to cook myself. And my parents were very much all about that, and about like, oh, if you don't like how we're doing something, then friggin' figure it out yourself. And so I kind of took that intellectually and emotionally also. And so kind of the Jeffina stuff, I mean, to be honest, I think I've probably heard it in the last 5 years also at some point. And I'm 47, so it's a little weird, but yeah.
It doesn't stop, huh? Like, you don't get to grow out of that.
Nah, not with my parents. Well, my dad's passed on, but my mother she's getting better now that she has grandchildren from my sister, who all kind of identify as non-binary, which is kind of fun and great and exciting to watch. And so it's been kind of interesting to watch my mother, who desperately wanted to be a grandparent, and that's why I kept hearing about it. But my mother, gave her 3 grandkids, and so she's kind of, in order to be able to relate to them, had to learn how to deal with people who were not necessarily fully gender normative, I guess.
Progressive, I guess, yeah. I feel like in those situations, it can go 2 ways. And I feel like found family is often goes into sort of like cozy books as well. But found family is so important because delivering the message that you can choose your family instead of being forced to have one that might not accept you. And a lot of the queer community has experienced not being accepted for who they are. And I love found family because it's exactly that as well, right? People can love you, like people who are not your family can love you harder and more ferociously than anyone in your family ever has. So I think found family is super important and very much in this book. They're not necessarily found. You're in confines. And that's why I thought, surely, and one of my questions here, what kid is the most likely to like be annoyed by another kid? And I would think it would be like Fee sometimes, who'd get a bit short, or like maybe she's maturing too quickly and just can't deal with these pesky boys. But it's like, surely there are Talia. Without hesitation, James is like, got it. I know, yeah. I'm gonna bury them in the yard. Yeah. Dig your own grave. But yeah, like if there are 6 kids under sort of 15 living on top of each other, there is gonna be fights. There's gonna be, oh my God, my brothers and I would have screaming matches. It's just wild. And like I think it was my brothers and I didn't really learn to love each other until I left home. And then we decided to like each other for the first time. But that was Mum, what was that like? Because Jack and Dart were always really, really close. But like we weren't close when we were in high school.
No, you weren't.
Well, that's weird.
You were
no?
all very antagonistic towards one another. You were all very different. And you all knew exactly what to hone in on to extract the most vehement punishment on another person.
No, one of them knew that, Mother, and you need to understand. I never knew the buttons to push. I only knew how to react to my buttons being pushed.
You sure knew which buttons. All of you knew which buttons to push.
Nah, disagree. It's a bit of a blind spot for me, maybe, but like, I was a saint. I know that's a lie. I know that's a lie. But yeah, I did have here which kid is most likely to actually annoy another. I think it would happen all the time. Just like, stop. Ugh, I can't. Ugh. Cheyenne says, it's so funny. My brother, 1 year younger than me, and I were attached at the hip until he left for the military. My mum thought that we were fighting a lot, but we were never serious. No, my brother and I had fights where I was like, I think today I could die. It could be today. I'll never forget Jack. Jack did one of the scariest things. He didn't mean to. He did one of the scariest things that ever happened to me. I had my arm. He picks up my arm, and he just starts doing this, just a test, and he just looks me dead in the eye, so serious, like factual. He's like, "Oh yeah, I could snap your arm in two," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "I wouldn't, but just I need you to know I could." And I was like, "Okay, thank you, love it." Speaking of that, here's my little segue here. Let's talk about adults that physically discipline. This is something that happens in this book not once but twice. Why have the women of Dykemi be so steadfast with striking and slapping and grabbing? Why is it important to sort of like hone in on the fact that this was discipline? Physical discipline is something, again, that's in a sort of maybe Generation X baby boomer, and it is absolutely unacceptable here. There is an amazing Australian show called The Slap. And what happens is, I think it's like a kid's birthday party, and one of the kids gets extremely rowdy or bullying or not great. And her parents...
They tried to do an American remake of that show.
They always do, and they can never nail the nuance. Sorry, but it's like the third time it's happened. Except now Australia has The Office, and apparently it's not good. So I feel bad about that. But essentially, it's like a parent physically disciplining another person's child, which, like, I feel that's a bit black and white. You don't do that. And the conversation even now is you don't do it ever at all, even to your own children. But we witness here Harriet grabbing, even if David was apparently an adult in this situation, grabbing a person to physically kind of hold and restrain. And then at the end, Janine Rowder going to slap a 7-year-old boy across the face. And the only reason why it didn't happen is because he figured out how to teleport. What is important about this discussion and this conversation? Is it a way to remind the reader that they are the antagonists? Is there nuance here, or is this a kick the dog situation? If you're going to kick a dog, you're a villain. We don't like you immediately. No questions, no ifs, no buts.
Absolutely kick the dog situation.
It's just a reminder that they're bad people. Yeah, it's just they're bad. We're on the same page. You can't question it. She went to strike
it's like,
child.
Yeah, it's absolutely kick the dog situation because they were villains before they did any of that. But it makes it so, I don't know, maybe the reader can feel better about the apathy of villainy a lot of the times, because we've seen it right now, that just standing back because it's like, oh, it doesn't affect me. And it's just, then it's like you're just letting all this like bad stuff happen. But when they got physically violent, it made it so, absolutely something has to happen to them. So I don't know if it's just making it more black and white, because you didn't need that to make them villains. They already were absolutely villains.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it was like an Austin Powers, we're going to steal the child to rule the government. I think, like, if that's literally, you are saying her incentive.
They should have had Miss Mabel Maude like twirling the mustache Lucy gave her.
That's brilliant.
And then they could have taken him away in a hot air balloon.
I think, though, there are still a lot of people, and I see in some areas going back to this spare the rod and spoil the child. I can't tell you how often being in public with my autistic grandson, and he'd have a meltdown, and we'd get reactions like, somebody needs to discipline that child. And for so many people, discipline means punishment. It's something physical. And all we do when we physically punish.
Oh, you've just frozen for a second, Colleen. No. Internet might have just cut out. Or we have the same camera. Relatable. This is a conversation that I think is interesting because, like, if you are a millennial, you're on the cusp. And Mum, let me know if you don't want to go down this path at all. But do you regret cleaning Darcy's teeth with soap? Because I don't. That was one of my favorite memories. Do you remember that? I can shut my eyes.
No, I can't remember it. I think Darcy did allude to it a couple of months ago.
I can shut my eyes and see it, Mum.
He realised that. Pardon?
Do you remember what happened? Darcy was 8 years old. He called you a bitch. He called you a bitch and you went, right, say a dirty word, must clean your mouth, and you made him brush his teeth with soap. And I remember there being like, yes, this is so cool. As if you would be dumb enough to call Mum a bitch ever, which I have since unlearned in my adult life, so I apologize for that profusely, Mother. But I do remember seeing that disciplinary action, and he learnt that lesson. He did. Because he was crying, sobbing, and you were like, keep brushing, mouth is still dirty.
I don't think he was sobbing. I don't think he ever sobbed.
He was sobbing.
Yeah, well, I can't remember.
Oh, no, what a shame. Can't remember it.
Bad parenting.
I loved it. But it was a great lesson for me as well, where it's like, oh, consequences. You can't say something like that and be like, let's talk about why that was bad. The message was very clear.
I have a coworker who clearly had abusive parents. Like, she cut her hair short. This woman is like 4 years older than me too, so she's like a middle-aged woman. And her mother wouldn't talk to her for almost a year because she cut her hair super short. But she was telling this story that she thought would probably be like, oh, haha, this is like a funny story from when we were kids. And it was that every day her parents would do the dishes and talk about how they were going to punish the children for the day. Not if like they did anything wrong, but it's just like, today here's your punishment. And it's like, that's abuse.
Holy hell. No, Mum only
That's
did
not
it
a
once.
funny story. That's abuse.
Mum did it once and it never happened again. But I remember you only needed to do it once. But he crossed that line. He ran across that line. Some really fun comments as well with like how we experienced discipline as kids. Catch says, I was dumb enough to look my mum in the face and tell her that a spanking didn't hurt. Shaya said, yeah, I laughed when my dad tried to discipline me. That was dumb. But that's us trying to fight for like, you know, it's fighting through the shame of like feeling a lot of pain. Snore said for me.
No, it legitimately didn't hurt. I was just real stupid and said that because it did after.
Oh, got it. Yeah, when the shock
was like, okay, well, I guess I'll make it hurt then.
Robin's in the chat saying, I had my mouth washed out with dial soap because my brother told my mum that I swore. And she said, I just wanted to hang out with my brother. I think we've all learned that, like, the studies have come back, vigorous studies about this kind of stuff, and there is actual no benefit of physically disciplining a young child. Okay, I think we're on the same page. But, you know, the generations had to learn, and they learned from their parents, and et cetera, et cetera. But, Mum, if you could do it again, would you? Would you wooden spoon it up?
Is this for grandchildren?
No, like if you were now my age.
No, because things have changed such a lot, and you know we just don't do that anymore. It's a bit like smoking in pregnancy and drinking in pregnancy.
Did you smoke
50, 60 years ago? That was nobody talked about it. That's just what people did. So I mean, rules and regulations and cultures and
information as well
change, and you know we adapt and we do better.
I don't like that I've had to change because the camera which sways that way. So I've got my thing over that way. And now we've got like a close-up on my pimple. Mum, would you like to name my pimple today?
No.
All right. I will decide on your behalf. It is now Bertie. Bertie the pimple. It will be gone in 2 days and it will remember that you never gave it the love it deserved. Darian, you've had your hand up.
Oh, just talk about the discipline thing. I just want to know in the chat how many people used to get like beat by the teachers in school, because that was like a normal thing for us growing up. To the point like where my best friends and I like we joke about, oh, this teacher used to hit us with like a ruler taped up, another one had like a stick taped up, another one had like a stick that wasn't taped up. Like it's just a joke for us, you know. It's like so because like they banned that type of punishment in schools like in 2000, I want to say, for us. So I was out of school. I was out of primary school by then, but I mean, like all my friends were just kind of like, yeah, we used to get licks. But like you know, like it didn't really like leave any damage on us. But I mean, like for other people, it did. But it was like just like kind of just like normalized for us in a way.
Well,
But you know,
there are
like
some archaic practices. What's so wild is we
yeah,
just had a conversation where it's like under no circumstances should another person discipline a child that's not theirs.
yeah.
And
And like
yet,
it was like normalized in our school. Yeah,
under a guise of education, is up to a teacher's
yeah,
liberty to enact physical discipline.
yeah.
We had the cane. I think the cane was ruled out in my
So
brother's school in like the early 90s. But the equivalent of that at my private all-girls high school is that panty checks were ruled out in the early 90s as well. So it's like, if you want to,
yeah,
you had to have school-appropriate underwear and there would be checks to see if that was conducted and if you were breaching school uniform. So
yeah,
it's like,
that's messed up.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
it's so
yeah,
interesting to see like the drastic
yeah.
difference where it's like
Because
boys were getting hit by
yeah,
sticks and canes. Yep, wrapped
yeah.
over the knuckles. Yep, you put it out.
On your
Uh,
butt. Yeah,
you have to, and they'd make you put your hand out, so you would take the and you're like,
yeah,
oh, God. And if you moved, you get
yeah,
two more. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Colleen says, when I first started teaching, physical punishment was the norm. Wow. And it's like at your discretion. And you're like, well, what? Wild. All right. I also want to talk about sort of how these women and the government, etc., is being portrayed as the antagonists. And I feel like there's, again, it's been trying to be made out here as black and white, but it still isn't. But the question that I found from the website Book Clubs said, as you watched Janine Rowder grilling Arthur during the hearing, spurred by the disillusion of extremely upper management, did any of her arguments sound familiar? When have you heard someone in power claim to be protecting children when they're actually harming kids? What is the real motivation that keeps Rowder and Harriet Mabel Moore so hell-bent on their mission? I don't really know how to answer this, so I'd kind of love to put that out. Aaron, your hand's up. Also, anyone who hasn't spoken, who hasn't chimed in, if you'd ever like to chime in, just feel free to unmute and go for it. I will prioritize you every time. But yes, Aaron.
I have actually 3 examples here in the U.S. From the Comics Code Authority, the parental advisory warning on music labels, and even the video game Senate hearings in the 90s. Like, all of them were about protecting children and censorship. And to a certain degree, they were right, but it's like the way they went about it was far more extreme than just allowing, like, kids to have access to things. Like with comics, it was about like basically making sure horror comics weren't so blatantly gory and graphic and stuff like that, because a lot of little kids were seeing it. And the reason for that was a psychiatrist saw all these young boys in juvenile detention, and he thought, like, well, there's a commonality. They all read comic books, therefore that's the cause. And now it's like, no, it's just little boys who want to enjoy comic books.
Yeah, it's like saying
And
every
same thing
single
with the
person who's played Grand Theft Auto would kill someone. And you're like, no,
Yeah, and
they
it
wouldn't.
came up with like the famous quote about, like, uh, in that court case where, like, okay, how do you describe pornography? And the judge is basically just like, you don't need to have a definition. It's like you kind of know it when you see it, and it's like that kind of applies. Like something's bad when you see it.
Yeah.
It's like you don't need to have a government hearing about the whole thing.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a rating in Australia where it's like PG, obviously, but we have M and then MA. Now, M it's up to your parents' discretion. Like, we think that there's a couple of themes in here. A great example is the movie, what's the movie Cher? Cher is in it. Clueless. Clueless is an M-rated movie. Now, Mum, the lounge room and the TV room was connected to my bedroom that one time, and I really wanted to watch it, and you said no. I think I was 9. You watched it, and I held the curtains aside, and I watched the whole movie when I was 9. And you didn't let me watch it because you said it's an M movie. And I was like, I want to watch it. And I watched it. I watched the whole thing. I'm so glad I did it. I loved the movie. And I remember afterwards being 9 years old thinking, why was that a problematic movie for me? I don't think that was bad at all. I loved it. I had a great time watching this. They passed a cigarette around. Yeah. And then when I was 15, I'm like, oh, that's not a cigarette. But it's like when you're a kid and you don't know about those things, it's not going to register. And it's only when you are informed and you do know about these things that you're like, oh, cool, there's drug use here. And I didn't know that as a 9-year-old. But it's like, I really loved the movie. That's the first time I've ever told you that, Mum.
I don't know what to say, Maude.
Yeah, well.
I tried.
Yeah. You were so adamant. You were very, if it's an M movie, you should not watch it until you are 15 years old. And that was a big thing. But the M.
Well, as you recall, Darcy went to somebody's house and watched Anaconda, and then about 4 months later told me that he'd had nightmares every night for 4 months.
That was me.
Anaconda.
That was me. I was 11 when I saw Anaconda, and I would have recurring nightmares about Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, riding the Anaconda all around the city, and then the village would be there, and they're like, we have to sacrifice a person to feed the Anaconda, and everyone pushes me forward. And I wake up being basically gorged.
More.
Yeah, okay. But Clueless, great film. Anaconda, now I watch it and the acting's the most scary part. But back then I did not need to see Anaconda. I don't like horror movies. MA is a rating that doesn't exist in America. MA, it's for mature audiences. If you go to the cinema trying to watch an MA movie, you need to show your ID.
Is that an NC-17?
Yeah, but American? For 15. Yeah. So we get a little bit more grace. We start drinking at 18. We can watch scary movies at 15, But in America, it's like, you have to be 17. Can't drink till you're 21. Anaconda now makes me think of Princess Donut. Fair enough. There's always going to be that horror movie that scares the living shit out of you. But I'm telling you right now, Clueless, I did not learn how to.
I just want to say, Anaconda's like a comedy.
I loved it. I still love that movie. I think it's so good. Batman Returns was a little scary. Actually, the scariest thing about Batman Returns was the ink, the penguin black mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not like that. I'm like, what did he just eat? Ew. John Voight's terrible accent. Hell yeah. Okay, what was that coming about? Oh, you were talking about ways to design. Cheyenne had a great quote, and this is exactly it. No wiggle room. This is what it is. The quote is, we talked a lot. Let me scooch. Unless it's easier to just say it again. After watch episode. Do you have the quote there? Oh, here it is. They're going to come after your children, indoctrinate them into thinking that being magical is normal. It's a choice. Now, the most not choice in this book is whether you are magical or not. Like, that one is ridiculous. And it's like, I wish there was like a logical conversation, because people truly do believe that gay people can choose to be gay. That is something that they actually do. And it's like, where is your logic? It doesn't exist. It does not exist. But I think in this instance where it's like, you're born magical or you're born not. And so I think like that for me was like so far-fetched, because it's apples and oranges. I feel like.
So did.
Yeah. No. You started. Make the bed.
Does everybody that's listening, did they feel that TJ Klune kind of handled? I mean, this is an allegory. So did he kind of handle the whole trans thing well? And that that choice thing was a really big statement, and it was certainly about the queer community. But did everybody feel that he kind of handled it well over the two books even?
Kate says, do you think straight women would still choose men if it were a choice? Love it. Look, Mum, I actually did a bit of research around this. TJ Klune, what was the word? Dedicated this book to the trans community, and there was a backlash that there's no trans representation in this book. There is non-binary representation, but that was like an interesting thing where I don't know if there were backlash where it's like, well, you say it's dedicated to a trans community, but where was our trans representation? I believe in the interview that I had with TJ Klune, he's such an advocate for the trans community. He's such an advocate for the queer community. He's doing such great work there. And what's really, really hard is when you do try to be an advocate, people watch for where you fail instead of cheering you on for where you succeed. And that's really, really hard. And that is another way to silence someone. There's a clip that I got from last week where I'm talking about the most powerful person we can have in our life in terms of like change is someone willing to listen. And I said something in there where I would, looking back, I misworded it, and I think I would say something different. I said, I acknowledged the fact that Black people are going to be so exhausted teaching about racism because it's something that they experience that white people won't get. And even if they have to ask, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not my job to teach you. And I said in that clip, I understand the exhaustion. I will never understand that exhaustion. I understand it would be exhausting. I understand that it could be exhausting. That is the notion. I understand the notion. I personally will never understand that exhaustion because I will never have to face that, and I never have that burden to carry. And but I really want to put out the clip because the rest of what I said I think was really important. But that one way that I phrased it, I'm like, whole clip's unusable because I would hate for someone to focus on that and say you would never understand, because then I would have to explain, you're exactly right. I never could understand. And I agree with you. When you are speaking live, it's not something that I can write down and edit until I'm really happy with it and can put it out there. And that's something that I, as someone who prefers to talk instead of write, scares the shit out of me. I am one like misconstrued, out of context sentence away from having my life ruined. So that's a really interesting thing where if a trans community is coming after TJ, after I spent an hour talking to him and hearing him be such an advocate, that's a little bit of a heartbreaking thing. Does he have a reason why there was no trans people in this? I'm not sure. I haven't looked for the answer. I just refuse to be the person that focuses on a negative when something is so positive. If you put that energy into looking for the flaw, looking for the thread to pull, looking for how it's not perfect or how one thing could have been done better when the entire book is so fantastic, I don't think that that's productive at all. And I don't know why we're so ready to pull people down for trying, which goes back into the most important person is someone willing to learn. Cheyenne says, I think the messaging was very clear here. His intentions are in the right place. There's always going to be someone who's not happy. Kate says that could also be social media dogpiling too. There are people who are not even part of the community who just like to start those arguments. You're exactly right. So that's really, really difficult. And I think you have to be so freaking brave, and you have to be so troll alert. Yeah. You have to be so, I don't know, to constantly create and put things out there for people to judge.
And thick-skinned.
Thick-skinned. And I will say, I've been doing this for 17, 18 years. I know the math ain't mathing. How's that even possible? She started young. It wasn't until about 4 years ago that the crack started to show. I don't know what the comment was that broke the camel's back, but for like 15 years, I would read the most horrific shit about me and laugh, and watch other people read something similar and crumble and be like, it's like, how can you believe it? If you don't believe it about yourself, how could it possibly be true? And I think I even told you, Mum, I was like, I have a comment and it's really rattled me. And it's, I hope you die of cancer and your family doesn't miss you. Now, The cancer part, I was like, listen, whatever, great. You want me to die of cancer? Fantastic. It was that your family doesn't miss you. So something that had been really weighing on me was that I'd been away from my family for a very long time. So this person weaponizing my family not missing me was the chink in my armor that unraveled me. And I was like, would you miss me? And she's like, who is this shit? I'm going to find him at name. But it was, yeah, really, really hard. Cheyenne says, hold on. Oh, that's so sweet, Jimmy. But, you know, cancel culture. And I think that that's a really destructive part of the left and progressive side that is not helpful at all. I think it is a really horrible weakness where people are so ready to just rage at someone for trying. I don't like that. Yes, you can misstep, but it's like, hey, just, you know, I'm not sure if you're aware. This is a learning moment. Have you thought about this? This is why this could upset other people. This is not really what we do anymore. Or, you know, this could be misconstrued in this way. This is what I've found helpful. That's a positive discussion. But
people don't want to learn anymore, though.
Yeah, but because there's no reward in learning. There's no space to learn.
Yeah, and there was right after the election, there was a stat that came out that said 55% of Americans read a book last year. And so it's like, A, yikes. B, how many of that 55% were lying? And how many of that 55% only read one book, and it was like a Jordan Peterson book or something. So you could probably say 25 to 30% of those people are actually readers.
There you go.
Which is really sad because, like,
I feel like learning,
no matter what you're reading, you're learning. You're learning vocabulary. You're learning different points of view. You're learning to exercise your imagination. And so, like, with 45% of people not even bothering, it's just like imagination is dying. And that's why parasocialism for art is so prevalent. Like with, you were saying, like TJ Klune, like people being like, how dare you not do this like perfectly, or they have like this ownership over art. It's because they have no imagination and can't create anything anymore.
I wonder if there is a correlation between not wanting to read books and like having that indirect learning. For me, it's a lot of escapism. I just love it. But you're right. You are constantly and indirectly learning. These discussions, we show up because we want to learn. Like, we are learning about others' perspectives. We are learning about why this book was impactful. We are learning every time we show up here. I think what's happening is, why aren't people learning? They're not given an opportunity. There's not a space to learn. And learning, forgiveness, or learning, who was it that's saying, there was a comment, and I want to get into what you said, Avery, because I think that's really important too. Here it is. Jelric said, to an extent, you aren't even allowed to learn from mistakes, as it's going to be dug up for the rest of your life on social media. That's the thing. You're not allowed to learn from a mistake. Mistakes are so important. I always have a personal thing. I'm very hard on myself, but I'm like, everyone's allowed to make one mistake once. You're allowed to make the mistake. If you choose to keep making that mistake, it means that you're not learning from it, and that's the issue. But you get a shot. You get a chance to make that mistake. You get to fuck up because you tried,
especially
right?
Especially after you've been told, like, not only did you screw up, but here's some ideas for how you can avoid that mistake, and they don't take that advice.
It is
they don't
the adult
do anything
version of what we're pushing in this book. You've got to make the mistake. Learning from it is the best way to learn. We are not allowed to make a mistake in this culture anymore. If you make that mistake, you are done. How dare you? And it's like, well, what did I do wrong? It doesn't matter. You should have known. And you're like, none of this is helpful. But someone's saying, what did I do wrong? Most important person. If someone goes, I'm doubling down, fuck you all, I meant what I said, and I want your parents to die, like, obviously that's not a learning moment and they don't want to learn. That's the difference. Avery, you said something that I think is so interesting. I would argue that, oh my gosh, the feed keeps going. I'm halfway through it. I would argue that it's not a true leftist ideology. I want to hear more about that because I'm really intrigued.
So I have been in leftist communities for a long time. Basically, as soon as I became old enough to form my own opinions. And it's always, the biggest thing has always been about learning. You know, you have to keep reading, keep learning. continue to expand your mind, continue to talk to different people, see different perspectives, and see how we can form a community to make things better. If you're not giving people the space to learn, then you will never be able to form the community that you need to make the changes that we want to see. And been a whole lot of talks on the way that talk a lot about how social media has affected this and stuff. And a lot of it actually, people go so far left that they loop back around and end up on the right. And that's kind of what that is, the not letting people make mistakes, not letting people learn, always keeping people down. It's a fascist ideology where we're if you keep pushing people down, then they'll never have the space they need to grow to start the movements that we need to make the changes that we want to see.
That's really interesting. You're right. You squash the people. But in this instance, it's there's just no room to learn. And I've noticed so often when someone's like, what did I do wrong? And when that's met with no space, no grace, no nothing as well, you turn that person, that anger, that spite, that shame that is felt. No, there's so much study, and I keep harping on about shame because I love Brene Brown's research into the shame as a subject. There is so much research which is you cannot teach a lesson, you cannot get accountability, you cannot have someone grow from shame. So if someone does something wrong and you shame them for it, publicly out them, look what you did, that person will get a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, and try to destroy the person that made them feel like that. It is not conducive in any way at all. I feel like also if you are not allowed to learn and you're not allowed to make a mistake, then it also squashes the most important thing, which is accountability, which is I need to own up to this. I did something wrong. And it's yes, you did this wrong. You suck. You're cool. I'll never kind of admit fault, or I'll never take accountability for this, because it's a confession in a way where it's great, burn her at the stake. She confessed to this. It's parallels with that. But is Tim's hand up? Yes, it is. Tim, your hand's up.
It is. I just wanted to add on to what was said about how so many people only read one book this year or whatever it was.
You want to say that you read two?
And I did, but the point I'm trying to make, and it goes into the not being allowed to learn and not learning, and there's a lot of cognitive dissonance where people choose not to learn as well.
Yes.
But I think part of that is because, and especially in America, and I don't know if it's the same in Australia, but part of it is because we have a culture where we have vilified being smart and being intelligent. I mean, how many, I grew up the smart kid in school, and I failed at all my classes because I hated being the smart kid because I got made fun of for it.
Yeah.
So I just didn't do homework and I didn't do any of that stuff, but I passed every test without trying, but we just have this culture where being smart and being intelligent and thinking about things critically is vilified and looked down upon. And a lot of people don't do it because they don't want to be vilified. So, and critical thinking skills are something that if you don't use, you lose, right? And I just think that that's probably a huge catalyst for a lot of the things that are going on right now and have been going on for the last 20 some years. But it just kind of triggered me when he said that. I was like, no, it's just the culture that we've developed as a country where learning and being intelligent and doing those things is just it's not something that's looked up to.
I would love everyone to weigh in on that. I have a pretty educated assumption that everyone here is smart because we're in a book club, and that is again, a thirst for learning. And I think people who want to learn know that that's the quickest way to grow, and it's a smart thing to do. I think if you read books and you want to learn and you're in a community to discuss themes in books, you are inherently a smart person. So with that said, now that I think, and I know everyone in this conversation is smart, what was your relationship to being a smart person in what Tim's explaining? Because I don't know if it's regional in America and in Australia, if it's a regional thing, or if it's a class-based thing. So I kind of want to spread the case study out a little bit further because I had a very different thing in high school for me. Colleen, you got your hand up, and then Ro, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think to some extent it has to do again with gender. I think it was more acceptable for girls to be smart, at least that was my experience, than for the boys to be really smart. For me, being smart was the one thing that I felt like that was my niche. That's where I found acceptance.
Okay. But yeah, there is a gender sort of discrepancy there. Yep. Ro, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I would agree about the gender discrepancy when it came to being in school itself. Especially, I went to a Catholic school in Ontario, so it was kind of expected that the girls would be the ones who were like answering the questions, and the boys would just sit in the back and kind of do whatever they wanted to do. And if
Sport.
there was a boy who answered, they were kind of like, "Oh, I didn't know that you would know the answer," which is just terribly insulting. But then I found it interesting too. I did 8 years of university, and I love learning. So if it was, financially feasible, I would have spent the rest of my life just in school
Nicole
learning.
meet Mum, Mum meet Nicole.
And my family didn't seem to understand the going to school thing. It was like, well, why are you doing that? What is the point? You don't need the schooling to get the job. All of those things, despite the fact that, yes, to be a social worker, you do, in fact, need schooling. But regardless of that, I did get the discrepancy mostly from family of not understanding learning. And still to this day, like they don't seem to appreciate the amount of work either that goes into getting degrees. So
I had the opposite experience. I was signing a 6-figure contract at 21, hosting for Nickelodeon Australia, and Mum said, "There's still time. There's still time to not do this and to go to university. You can still do it. You can still get an education." And I was like, "What are you talking about, woman?" That was funny. You didn't give up on that dream for a while. I think you still encourage me to go to university at this stage.
I actually had the exact same experience.
Yeah? Yeah.
Like both of my parents have master's degrees, and I made my first lots of money without a degree. And finally, after I retired, I went back and got a degree. Thankfully, like a month before my dad passed. And so he got to watch me walk across the stage, and that was like the proudest moment of his life. Like not me selling my business for a fair amount of money. No, it was me walking across the stage, getting a college degree. So strange.
There
so
are
strange.
two types of parents, aren't they? Darren, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. So just to counter the experience Tim had, like growing up for us, being smart was celebrated. Like our all boys Catholic school. Yeah, you'd play games and stuff like that, but I mean it was like always a competition. Who would be in top 5 in class, who would be in top 10 in class. So it was never discouraged to the point where like they took all the top performing students from all the different classes and streamed us into one class when it was time to write the exam to get into secondary school. I don't know if Australia has the equivalent.
Yep.
And then it was a culture shock in secondary school, like, oh, all these kids are super smart as well.
Yeah.
So, the performance started slipping and you needed to learn to work harder, that kind of thing. But it was never discouraged or anything like that.
Oh, I was.
But I mean, like, I guess different country, different culture. I mean, but at the same time, like, one thing is, like, I have a university degree. My dad is pushing me for my master's for the longest while now. I have a steady job. I don't know how useful the master's would be, but he still wants me to complete that master's. So I think it's still like a cultural thing there.
Yeah, maybe. I do think that's interesting, though. Like, having a conversation about whether you were deterred for being smart or rewarded for being smart. We have gotten on some tangents. There's been some great comments, though, people about getting picked on and not getting picked on. Cheyenne said the boys were stereotypically the class clowns, but the class pets were the girls. But at an all-girls school, someone had to be the class clown, and that was me. I would, I'm sorry, Mum. I would fake diarrhea all the time so I could go to the library and write my friends lots of notes because I didn't want to be in class. And let me say, my acting skills were A+. They weren't arguing with me on that matter. When I disappeared for half an hour and I came back and I had the mist of my water bottle, looked like I was sweating. Yeah, I was the class clown. But I called that a master's in personality. Mum, I got my master's in having a personality. She's awfully quiet right now. Aaron says I was always teased because I read a lot in high school. Any downtime or study hall I was reading. Some of the other boys in my grade liked mocking me for reading a lot, but it didn't stop me. Yeah, dude, reading in high school means that whatever's happening in that book is way more interesting than anything coming out of their mouths.
The only bad time was 11th grade because of budget cuts. Our school library, which is basically where I got all my books that I wanted to read for fun, came from, and they basically closed it down except for like testing. And then senior year, they like opened it back up again, thankfully. So senior year didn't suck nearly as much.
That's good. That's good. I found primary school to be incredibly easy, and I was humbled going to high school. Oh my God, I was humbled. It just stopped making sense. And I'm like, I feel like it was like fine, coasting. And then it just went boom. And I did not bring my hiking gear. I could not get up that mountain that fast. Love the conversation that's been around this. Great conversation from this book, but I always knew we were going to have great conversations stemming from this book. I'm a big fan of it. I keep following your Goodreads, and I want to hear all the scores again. I gave it a 3.75. I loved the message. I did feel it was a little heavy-handed, and I think one of my big things that how I critique is I'm disappointed by its potential. I really feel like we could have gotten a lot of depth with these characters. I feel like we could have had a lot more hands-on experience. I feel like we could be put in precarious situations. But Cheyenne made a really great observation. I'm a millennial, and I recognize the tough shit. And I also, as me right now with this book, understand that it had to be cozy. And I am really grateful for cozy at this time as well. Cheyenne said 5 out of 5. I understand a lot of critiques, but I'm never going to turn down a cozy read. Except I think that Legends and Lattes should have been a time management video game. It should never have been a book. I could see the levels. I'm like, oh, you've earned enough money so you can level up and get the pastries now. That's a video game. Colleen said I needed cozy right now. What's this comment? KP Dubs, I'm really tired. Not saying much. Oh, that's okay. I'll get better. Yeah, ginger. Don't make me mother you. Ginger. Lots of ginger, vitamin C. Oil of oregano is really good as well. Do all the good stuff. If you're like my dad, you eat an orange every single day, you'll never get sick. He swears by it. He swears by it. Thank you so much for the discussion, everyone. We're going to be reading The Last Unicorn next, and we're going to be meeting on Wednesday instead of Thursday. I'm getting my butt out of here. I'm going to Mexico for a few days. So that's why I made the change. Thank you for doing that. I needed to get out.
Can I say one thing before we leave?
Yes.
I just want to say to everyone, because we were talking about people not wanting to learn.
Yes.
And like not wanting to seem like, stupid, or that's why like, where it's like, the people roll their eyes when you say there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah.
I get that all the time at work. Believe me. Whatever question you're going to ask is not as stupid as, do you carry books with stories in them? So ask those questions.
And now they know. And I bet you had all the grace in the world for that. This is not the time to tell you that my biggest weakness as a person is stupid people. And as soon as they identify themselves as a stupid person, my patience goes out the window, because I'm like, what I'm saying makes perfect sense. It's just you're refusing.
Or how I got asked if we sold cheese.
Do you sell cheese?
We do not.
Oh, at a bookstore?
Now
I know. I will no longer go to
Rap
bookstores.
singles make amazing bookmarks. I'm just saying.
Thank you, everyone, for the discussion.
Like cheese and wine at a bookstore at that point. It almost kind of goes hand in hand.
I think there should be cheese, wine, and books. Bit of fig jam in there. That sounds great. Look, there's a lot more in the document. We filled out 10 pages in the doc over this book. We'll be posting our book club questions to go up on the site. So if anyone else does Somewhere Beyond the Sea in their book club, we've got questions to talk about. This was a lot of fun. Last Unicorn next Wednesday. Murderbot book 6, potentially 7, TBD. Members will be voting if we want to tackle 2 books in December or just a light little book. Totally up to you. If you haven't gotten around the perks of Maude's Book Club, we do have a Patreon. There are, I think, 4 different levels and tiers of perks that you can unlock. The one that I enjoy when we do these streams is Members Plus. Everyone is in a Discord video call right now with my mum. How cool is that? Mum's in here. We meet 2, 3, sometimes even 4 times a month to discuss books. It is an amazing community. It is fantastic. If you've got FOMO, this is your sign. Join the book club. You won't regret it. Thank you so much, Skull Cleaver. I'm going to see you. Wait. Can't remember.
Sunday.
It is.
Sunday.
Okay. Well, because it's like I know real name and I know username, and sometimes I don't know if it's the right username with the right real name. It's 2 names for every person sometimes, and that's just one person. Join the Patreon. We'll hopefully have some more Q&As with authors coming up. Why don't I want to say goodbye? Just go, Maude. End the stream. Stop
Till next
talking
time.
about the book.
Can we get some last words from Mum Garrett?
Yeah, Mumma, give us some parting wisdom.
Thank you for having me. It's been really great to discuss the book. I don't get anybody to discuss it for another couple of months unless my book club decides to take it up. So it's been very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you. And to quote Sal, I'll end with this. Hiding away solves nothing. Stop trying to act like you're doing this alone. You're not. You have us. Yay. No, you hang up, says Toaster Poster. I know. I'm so like that right now. Let's raid into someone's stream and make their day. I'm always open to hearing about new streamers that don't have big audiences so we can make their day. We are spreading kindness around here. But sometimes kindness is all we have. Does anyone have a rec?